you have to be accepting as a school when it comes to allowing and having all these different cultures. You have to be accepting. And like what we talked about, it's basically one of the founding value, I would say, of Botwell.
David Chen moved to North Vancouver from his native China in 2010 to attend Bodwell High School, where he graduated in 2012. While at Bodwell, David embraced the diversity and rich multicultural aspect of his fellow classmates. David's secondary school journey culminated in him pursuing a career as a CPA in one of Canada's most exciting northern communities. Okay, David, can you please start by giving us a thumbnail summary of what you've been up to since graduating from Bodwell High School? For example, where did you take your post-secondary education and what did you study? And especially, what are you up to now?
So after graduating from Bodwell, I went on to study at UBC Okanagan in Kelowna for my undergraduate degrees in Faculty of Management. And I specialized in accounting in my fourth year. And after that, I went on to study my master's in Universities of Saskatchewan for 2 summers in pursuit of my Master's of Professional Accounting degree. And yeah, I wrote my common final exam for the CPA program in 2018, and now I am looking to obtain my CPA designation.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, one step at a time.
David, do you think that Bodwell High School influenced your choice of university and your area of study?
um, I would say it's not necessarily what I learned at Botwell that propelled me into the areas of study, but more so the people I get to meet whilst I was, a high school student at Botwell, both inside and outside of high school.
Now, if you were to write a resume listing
Mhm,
your experiences and accomplishments while at
mhm.
Bodwell, what do you think it would say?
It probably would say a few things on the academic side. I remember receiving some sort of affirmations upon my marks, I guess, and I was quite involved in this in the music side of things. So it was quite interesting because I remember vividly there were quite a lot of like cultural events or talent shows where students were encouraged to take part in, and I took part in those activities. So.
Excellent. That was going to be my next question. What extracurricular activities were you involved in? Can you go in a little detail for us?
Sure, I was in as I was saying, like the music club, I guess. I forgot how it was named, but there were a period of time with this music teacher where we would do multiple musical numbers, if you call it so, for assemblies or for some of the events. And there were also times where I think I wasn't really involved in the band, but more so just that club itself with a few individuals. And I was also involved in the cross country running club.
So,
Yes.
so did you play a musical instrument?
Yes, I did.
Which one?
I played piano.
Oh, great. You're always a hit at a party when you play the piano. Excellent. And you enjoyed you enjoyed that activity, playing it or being around the band.
Constructive in a sense because you're not just playing for and by yourself. You are collaborating with people, and more specifically people from all around the world. You are doing pieces that are not necessarily just what you're familiar with. It's interesting to see how much you can be exposed in a small high school like that. I mean, it's not small by any means, but just comparing it to like a university setting.
David, what subjects did you prefer and excel at?
I was more inclined, or I would say I was more interested, I would say, in the sciences like math, physics, and chemistry, more so chemistry than anything else. And yeah, not so much of the liberal arts side of things. For me, I was more drawn to chemistry just because, you know, the level of knowledge looking at the things that we were looking at was more intriguing than just thinking about, forces and that kind of thing, on the physics side.
So just take a minute here, David. What's your proudest memory of the school, of Bodwell High School?
I would have to say it was this event that they were holding for in support of the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan. So, as you may remember, 2011, that was like a huge deal that sort of shook the entire world. And we also happened to have quite a big amount of Japanese students in the school. And just to see how everybody comes together in situations like that, whether they show support and the kind of care. I think there were numerous events that were held to demonstrate that, but I think two things come to mind. One is I think in the assembly, because I think we have that weekly. I think we had that weekly, and it was a video where it shows people from all around the world, the kind of messages that they were sending to Japan. And I remember myself and people around me, they were all like tearing up, looking at what was happening, that kind of interview that they were showing in that video. It was very touching, as well as, at that point you remember yourself to be a global citizen, irrespective of where you come from. And then there was that event where we held to generate, fundraising event to generate the kind of support, monetary support for Japanese, I think, organizations. And you can see the Japanese students, they came together, organizing different games and, different food preparations, and everybody in the entire school took part. It was very heartwarming to see that.
I could tell it had quite an impact on you.
Yes, yeah, I was quite close with the Japanese community, so.
Excellent. If you can just think back, David, to when you and your family were choosing a school, how and why did you choose Bodwell?
I would have to say at that point in time, I wasn't quite involved in the school selection process. I would say that my parents did ask me, that they did ask for my opinion and asked me to just give a little evaluation and see if I have any preference. But at that point, I think there wasn't much of a question even, because we knew we were coming to North Vancouver instead of other areas of Vancouver. And Bodwell probably would have made the most sense because it was an international high school and it was, located right by the water, a lot of things. And then I think I didn't quite read into, the teachers, the education system, because I guess I wasn't quite in the place to evaluate that kind of thing. But the education agent on China side, on the Chinese side, he was giving us, the brochures and everything. And after reading that, well, this looks like a great place to go. That's why we went with it.
And where were you attending school before you got to Bodwell?
It was a public school in China, back home, one of the more competitive schools, high schools that was in the city. So
Cool. If you had to pick one thing, David, what did you appreciate most about attending Bodwell High School?
I don't need to think about this at all. I know the answer would be the multiculturalism.
Want to dive into that a little bit?
Sure. It's just that for me personally, I've always been drawn to different cultures ever since I was little. I would read and sort of watch TV programs regarding different cultures, different countries, like to see, their food, their culture, language, and all those things. So just intrinsically, I was very drawn towards that aspect of experience, whatever it is, academically or whatever. And to be able to enroll in a school like this, where you actually are exposed to, I forgot how many countries and areas they were advertising at that point, but it was quite a lot compared to where I was. And that just was very eye-opening.
Now, if we can just step back again and take a look at Bodwell High School as objectively as possible. And to the best of your knowledge, David, what in your mind would you say differentiates Bodwell High School from other schools a family may choose instead?
It's a very difficult question to answer because my perspective is only within my own experience at Bodwell. And again, it's a private school. I couldn't quite compare it to a public school in Canada because I didn't experience it. But as far as I can tell, because I also sort of went back to the school when I was in university to do tutoring. And I think that was sort of enabled me to have an outsider's perspective, if anything, to look at the school. And I would say the strength of the school really is in, well, first of all, the multiculturalism that you sort of get, that is very concentrated, first of all. Because in the public school system, probably what you would see would be mostly Canadians. And of course, there are still people from different, cultures, background, and different heritage, but they would be probably mostly Canadian. And if anything, they were born or they grew up here, and the cultural side of things may not be as prominent compared to Bodwell, where everybody literally just got off the boat, for the lack of better words. So there's that. You were just thrown into a big pot of different cultures. And number two, I would say, is that because of the fact that everybody is in the same boat, everybody came from a different culture, they have this focus on enabling international students to excel in a Canadian environment. Yeah, because they're geared towards international students, they would have that strength right there, right? And I think the third thing is, oh yeah, I wasn't living in a dorm.
Oh.
I wasn't living in a dorm, but there are mostly students. I think at that point they were living in a dorm, and from what I could tell, the dorm life was quite enjoyable. They had lots of activities. They would organize a lot of, pre-COVID time. This is. They would organize a lot of outings. Either it was hiking or into the town, experiencing, I don't know, the science world in Vancouver, or some shopping malls. It just was quite, heartwarming to see that they have all these things designed for the students, knowing that they would be probably battling with things like homesickness or battling with loneliness and things like that. They really try to mitigate that. So I would say those are the things, because I think in a Canadian public school, you probably wouldn't get a dorm. You would get probably just homestay, right? So
yeah.
so
That's a great answer. Thanks for delving into that. Now, we're going to switch this around a little bit. Say Bodwell High School was going to become personified. Bodwell High School all of a sudden is going to be a living, breathing person.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please describe its personality in 3 words?
Accepting, first of all.
Good.
And number 2 probably would be what? It would probably be something, or something along the line of disciplined.
Oh, okay. Good.
Disciplined. There were a lot of rules. I would say that, not unlike any other schools.
For your benefit, right?
Yeah, not unlike any other schools, but disciplined. And I would say almost this depends on how the audience take it, but I would use the word eccentric.
Do you want to
Because
expand
it's
on any of those? You had accepting, disciplined, and then eccentric.
right.
Those are three really, really cool words to describe a person.
Well, accepting just because you have to be accepting as a school when it comes to allowing and having all these different cultures. You have to be accepting, and like what we talked about, it's basically one of the founding value, I would say, of Botwell. And without acceptance, either of their culture background, their upbringing, their religion, their food, all of the things all encompassing, it wouldn't hold together. And discipline, again, this is not unlike any other school. It is a place for forming and training and education. So you got to have all those things in place. And I remember Bondwell probably was also quite strict on a few on a few front. You know, the eccentric is just that I think it's just like a safety word for me because I couldn't find any other thing that would be able to sort of wrap this person up because you have so many different sides of it. Again, because it's very culture aware, it's very culturally aware of what it provides to the students. I believe anybody from a different part of the world would have a different answer for you. And for that matter, I would say it's eccentric because it doesn't only celebrate, Canadian holidays like, I don't know, Valentine's or Christmas. You would also have probably, Mexican holidays or a Chinese New Year thing, right? Like there's gonna be like lots of these different things that they sort of mesh together, which makes it quite eccentric compared to other schools.
Okay, David, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. What would you say are the school's highest values in actual practice?
I would say it was more of well, at least I think I sort of took more advantage of the caring and empathy and the culture side of things. But I do believe the school's primary goal or its focus, whatever word you want to use for this matter, is education, is the formation, the training, and preparation of students for them to go to college or university.
Excellent.
Mhm.
What do you think students and their families would find surprising about Bodwell High School? What surprised you when you were there? I think you gave me an answer about the diversity, but was there something else?
Sure. What surprised me was, from my perspective, I would say the lesser load of academic tasks in one sense. It's lesser because back home when I was in grade 10 back home in China, we were battling 9 subjects on a weekly basis. We're not just taking 4 subjects every semester. We're taking 9 subjects just in grade 10. And probably had I gone into grade 11 in China, I would have been battling with 6, right? Nonetheless, it's still much more than the Canadian system, the way classes are structured. So I think all of a sudden, at least from our perspective, a lot of students would find it all of a sudden they're having all of these time, these freedom, this sense of freedom within their own grasp. So that was quite surprising to me.
Okay, you touched on this next question a little bit earlier, David. And can you describe for me a typical student at Bodwell High School and how you remember them relating to one another?
Okay, so that's a big question. So I'll answer the former part first. As a as a as a student, I think there's changes. So do bear in mind this is 8 years ago. Um, I think we would go to school, arrive at about like 8:15. School would start then. You'll have two periods. In the morning time, I think each period at that point lasted an hour and a half, after which it would be lunchtime. And after lunchtime, you go straight into your third and fourth period. And right about like 3:30, I think, excuse me, school would be done. And then it will be time for extracurriculum activities, whatever it may be. So that is a normal school day. And in terms of like students in relation to one another, I think you have to break that down between you and students from your cultural background and you and student from a different cultural background. So for me, I remember, well, I think this would happen in any international school because of your homesickness, because of your I guess the longing for understanding. You always naturally gravitate to your own language group, your own culture, your own people, which is what happened. And I guess the school really did its, sort of showed all of its tricks to enabling students to experience a little bit more than just their own culture. So there's that. I think for me, interacting with people from my culture, back, all the Chinese students, there's no problem. Everybody would be like, "Oh, did you get this homework done?" Or, "Oh, how did you understand this?" There's a lot of the mutual help there.
Mm.
And between me and between other culture and my own culture, I was taking the stance of just, I want to learn about it, I want to know. And most likely those people would be very, people from all the other cultures. Just like if somebody asked me of Chinese culture, same thing, you would be in the situation, in the position to share, and willingly so. You would be almost, in a sense, very proudly and willingly demonstrate to people who are asking you, say, "This is what we do, this is what we believe in, this is what it's like back home." So there's a lot of that going on a daily basis, which made it a lot more than the academics itself.
I'm going to get personal right here.
Okay.
Do you think your experience at Bodwell High School has shaped who you are today as a person, and in what way?
Short answer is yes. It wouldn't it wouldn't go. I don't think anybody would say any period of time in their life did not have any influence on them. In the way that it did is that I guess I was made I was made aware of the diversity. This is not just culture. I was just made aware of diversity, just in the sense that, well, first of all, I was sort of pondering this like in my in my years after I graduated from Bodwell, just in the sense the diversity of how education can look like. Education back home, for example, was under a totally different philosophy compared to here.
Reflecting on your own experience at Bodwell High School,
Mm,
um, how, if you had to pick something to change about the school, what do you think it would have been? And what would have helped
mm,
you if it were different about the school when you were there? You graduated in when? 2012?
yes.
Yeah.
I think this is just my opinion.
Hmm.
I probably would have liked to have more. Maybe this is because this, again, the school is very education and academics oriented. But aside from that, I would really have liked to see if they would um, sort of just offer either in extracurriculum or as a course itself, just maybe different languages
Mm.
or different culture. Maybe the class is just about cultures and politics or social or languages, right? So then maybe we can have some more languages, like, the ones that are majorly used in Canada. That would be what? French and Spanish, maybe. And maybe you can have the classes where students are engaged together to have some sort of debate, or just like one exclusive class or time devoted to something like that. I would have loved that a lot.
How has your perspective on Bodwell High School and your experience there evolved over time, especially that you're no longer attending?
After I graduate, I actually kept in touch with some of the teachers. And the reason I'm on this interview is because I kept in touch with one of the counselors, right? And last night I was actually talking to one of the teachers that taught me English. That was also my country club coach. And we're now on first name basis, right? And to have that kind of transitions, you get to enjoy, in a sense that, because now you're no longer just teacher student kind of dynamics, you're also just like almost like a peer dynamic, right, regarding each other like as an equal. And that sort of enabled me to really dive in to also see their perspective of teachers when they were there. And I think it's very important as students to have that empathy as well, because maybe it's hard for students like in their high school stage of life, but I think it's important to understand, what, there are different faculty members. You are a part of the school, yeah, being a student, but it's not just you, right? You are also working in a sense with the teachers there, and the teachers, they have their own challenges, and they have their stories, but you're just not privy to that when you're a student. But I think it's great to understand as a student, at least you don't need to know what is going on with them, but just to know that there are things that also go on, in the teacher's level. And I think that really helped me to have a new sense of empathy, being a student. Or
Great.
probably I was thinking to myself, what could I have done better if I had, what could I have done better when I was there if I saw, some teachers, maybe they were having a bad day or things like that. What kind of attitude, stance, or action I would take in to, to do my best to mitigate the situation or whatever. So,
Quick question. Do you recommend other students enroll in Bodwell High School?
yes.
Okay. Can you give me 3 reasons why, please?
Okay. Number one.
The 3 biggest.
Yes. Number one, you will get to see the world much bigger than you ever had in a much more concentrated environment. So it's very rich, I would say. It's very rich if you allow it to be so. If you're willing to step out of your own cultural bubble and to utilize yourself, your own willingness, your language skills to learn about other cultures, it would be one of the best environment to be in, first of all. Second of all, it's that, well, the campus, I believe, even with the time I was there, there was a lot of constructions going on. And after I graduated, like, it became much bigger and more beautiful. So I would say, secondly, you'll be enjoying probably the best equipment, the best infrastructures and facilities that there are in terms of what a school can offer. Especially, I think, when they are quite conscientious and conscious on the effort to make that available to the students. So there's that. And number 3 would be, of course, the education quality, just because they are geared towards international students. And if you go into let's say, a non-international student focused school, whatever that may be, private or public, you would just probably not have that customized level of attention geared towards addressing your own challenges being an international student.
Further to that, outside of those three reasons, David, is there anything you would say to a family watching this, considering Bodwell High School right now? What should they know?
Like what we touched about previously, there is a great sense and a greater sense and greater degree of autonomy given to a student. Or in a sense, I guess this depends on what cultural background you come from, right? Maybe your background is a little bit more conservative, then you would definitely feel the thing that I felt, which is that you also become more autonomous because you are now able to choose who you want to hang out with, what you want to do with your time, what you're going to be able to say and do. I think partly because you are now outside of your parents' grasp as an international student, that is regardless of what cultural background you come from. So I would say to the family that wants to pursue this option to send their children abroad is to sort of have this conversation with them, whether they are ready to be self-autonomous in this way, because it really means a lot more responsibility and self-awareness for them to be able to control what they do, what they say, especially like what I said, right? You make mistakes interacting with other cultures. All of a sudden you are unknowingly offending someone with something that you did, something that you said, and you have to take responsibility for that. And how to deal with that is something that you have to learn. More so, also you have more time on your end on your hand now, because probably compared to where you came from, the study is not as laborious. Then what do? Do you just stick with what the school offer, and do you take advantage of what you're able to take advantage of? So I think that's something all of the families should consider.
Excellent. And what about a family touring or visiting the school? It's a beautiful campus, as we've mentioned. Is there
Yes.
anything you draw their attention to above all else?
I would probably emphasize and probably lead them to the dorm. Because I guess a lot of family, maybe, both the kids and the family and the parents, probably they would be more interested and worried about what their living quarter is going to be, what their living situation is going to be. Are the facilities complete? Are the facilities well equipped? Right. So I think if they take a tour in how the dorms are set up, the equipment that is available to students for their daily use, I think that would give them a great sense of what the school is trying to offer to the students, at least on a personal level.
Good. Now I'm going to put you in the speaker's seat here. Imagine that you're going to be talking to a student who's just about to enter Bodwell High School. What is that one piece of advice you would give a student just about to enter Bodwell?
I would give them one piece of advice that probably consists of two words. One is to be self-aware, and one is to be accepting. So one is more internally, one is more outwardly. So self-awareness, I think, is very important, especially for international students, because you really most likely are going to be by yourself if your parents are not coming with you. And I think the fact that you are training on your own self-awareness at an earlier age, because I came at grade 11, that was like, 16 years old. And the school offers programs, I think, starting grade 8, that would be like much even younger, 14, right? I think if you are able to train yourself on being self-aware, it's going to have a big impact following your time in Canada, when you are even in undergraduate, or even postgraduate, and even in career, in your work. It would be such an asset to have. And I think when you first start being an international school, international students living on your own, that's a great time to start that. And I think accepting is just, you are interacting with all these different cultures, these people. Your teacher's going to be different. um, just got to be learning to accept the differences. And again, it's okay to have opinions. I think it's okay to have your own understanding and judgment upon certain subject matters, but I think that's very different from being accepting of the differences that people demonstrate.